Right? So we need to log in. Did you find your panelists? Arnie just needs to log. We just need to log in with panelists, like any of the panelists. Right?
Arnie, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I can hear you.
Got a little reverb going on.
Yeah.
We'll shut the door. Oh, look at that view.
Arnie?
Predator.
What do you want to do?
Oh, that's the there's that. Settings. Yeah, virtual background. Where? Filters. Virtual background. Let's see. Background. No. Oh, I see. Oh, there we go. Hey.
So where is this computer? I got to plug in my phone.
It's hiding behind the screens here.
You know, maybe we should not have this big camera.
Oh my God. Just turn it off.
I did.
Where are you in the boardroom?
Huh?
Why aren't we in the boardroom?
Because it's just a Zoom meeting.
Well, how do I go?
No grants.
Yeah, you can go Zoom.
How is that? The con guys don't want graphics problems.
Yeah, we're gonna post the grants once done.
Wait, short circuit.
Yeah. Okay, so you guys gonna zoom up there?
I don't know how many people are in here, that just you got.
Jeff's not gonna be here.
Jeff's not gonna be here. I'll sit off. He's doing it. I'll sit off to the side.
I don't see where that USB can go. Let's move it.
Okay.
Hey, Michael.
Hello, Gene. How you doing?
Okay. Where are you?
I am in South El Monte,
Okay,
down by the San Gabriel River. We're doing a project down here. We're two endangered birds, and we're reestablishing the habitat. So today I'm spraying the weeds around all the native plant materials. So yeah, they're gonna plant a lot of natives, and then we're putting in the irrigation system, and it's all because they're redoing the dam at San Gabriel, and this is a federal contract project, and we're involved with. So fun and games today. Well, not just today, for the next month. Be done.
if you
here.
want to spray weeds, you don't have to go to that far. You can come to my house and I'll just walk around and show you where to spray.
Well, look what I'm using to spray, a tractor and a sprayer. So
Wow.
it's too big for your yard.
I'm afraid that's true. Or maybe I'm glad that's true.
Yeah.
Glenn and Kim, can you hear me in the conference room there?
Yes.
Yes, we can. We're
Okay.
just getting, we're just about ready to go live here.
We got a few minutes. We're waiting for other board members.
Chair West, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Kelly, thank you. Good afternoon, Tony.
Good afternoon.
Director Ramirez messaged me that she was having trouble logging in. So I just sent her the link again.
Hi, David, how you doing?
Hello, everyone.
Hey, David.
Michael.
Always gonna log in.
Okay, I'm in, but
All right, good afternoon.
I seem to have, keep clicking on a link that takes me to the public I don't know why. I'll have to talk to Keely about why I'm doing that. I also have to enter my email, which doesn't seem,
That's curious.
so I'm doing something wrong or something else is wrong. I don't know.
All right, why don't we, it is 1:31. We will call to order the February 23rd, 2022 meeting of the Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency Board of Directors. With that, I'll ask everyone to rise wherever you are and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to
To the
the
flag.
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And Keely, a roll call, please.
Chair West,
Yes.
Director Ramirez,
Yes, I'm here.
Director Mobley,
Here,
Director Tremblay,
Here.
Director Borcher.
Yes, I'm here.
I thank you. An agenda review, any proposed changes to the agenda?
No changes, Chair.
Thank you. Any public comments? Anyone wishing to address the board on matters not otherwise on today's agenda is welcome to do so at this time. Please raise your hand or otherwise indicate so that the clerk of the board can recognize you.
None seen, Chair.
Seeing none, we'll move on to board member comments. I just have one comment. With any luck, this will be our last Zoom meeting. The contemplation is that by the March meeting, we will all be back in the boardroom and in person with no plans for a hybrid meeting, which has complicated our lives in the past more than necessary. So to the extent that anybody has any questions about where the next meeting is, it will be business as usual, back in the boardroom with regular order unless something else is declared on the state level or county level. So plan accordingly. Any other comments by any of the members of the board before we move to the consent?
Chair? Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is my last board meeting today, and I've appreciated and enjoyed the opportunity to serve on this board with all of you, my fellow directors. I guess on the flip side, I managed to serve a 2-year term without ever stepping into the Board of Supervisors chamber. On the serious side, the issues that GMA faces are and our groundwater basins face are serious, and they call for very thoughtful problem solving with an eye on the long term. And I'm confident that you will be able to do that, my fellow directors. So best of luck to my successor, Director Perello, and that's it.
Thank you, Tony. Your service on this board is much appreciated. Much appreciated. You'll be missed.
Chair?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. And I would like to also thank Member Tremblay for his service. I've been on a number of other committees with him, and he's always very thoughtful, very wise in his comments and his approach. I really appreciate it. And you're going to continue as an alternate, isn't that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I hope you do stay tuned because we could always use your thinking on these things. And you are correct. We have some very critical issues regarding water. This, I just always am wishing more members of the public would pay attention to what this committee is doing, what water issues are. And I think because this is a committee dealing with water in a specific area, it is important to just note for the record, there are reports that we're in the worst drought in the United States in 1,200 years. I just feel like I would be remiss if I didn't just make that statement for the record. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
thank you, Tony.
Thanks, Mike, David, Mr. Chair.
If there are no other comments from the board, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Unless someone has a question or a comment on any of the 3 items, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second,
There's a motion and a second. We need a roll call.
Chair West,
Yes.
Director Ramirez,
Yes,
Director Mobley,
yes,
Director Tremblay,
Yes.
Director Borcher.
Yes,
All right, we have a welcome short agenda today. We'll move on to agenda item number 4. Proposal to amend resolution number 2020-03.
Chair West, members of the board, this is Kim Lowe, Fox Canyon staff. Hopefully you're hearing me okay. And I'm going to share my screen here and hopefully that will work appropriately. Let's see. So you should be seeing that hopefully. And so this, whoops, I got the wrong one up. Let's try the other one.
Are you sure?
Is it?
Item 4.
Yeah, item 4. So this is, I need a keyboard. I jumped to agenda item. So now we should be seeing the right one. So this item is a proposed amendment to resolution 2020-03, which your board adopted in April 2020 and provides for policies and procedures for granting variances from initial allocations under the Oxnard and Pleasant Valley Allocation Ordinance. Section 1 of the resolution addresses the case of unreported well extractions during the allocation base period of 2005 to 2014. And it provides a procedure for those owner operators with unreported extractions to apply to receive recognition of those actual extractions. Depending on the case, there's different procedures. The first case is where there's 5 or more years of extractions reported to the agency. Then there is a schedule of civil penalties for that failure to report that's included in the resolution. And these are reduced from the $50 a day standard civil penalty. And although reduced, they're still very significant. And in the resolution is the ability for the applicant to appeal to your board to have those civil penalties reduced based on a showing of extenuating circumstances or a lack of culpability in causing the violation, i.e. the unreported extractions. And your board has heard 5 such appeals under the resolution. As your board's seen, the cases typically have very complex histories, especially with the complications of changing COM codes and wells coming in and out of reporting together, and sets of facts and ownership and operation. In the 5 individual cases that your board has heard, after weighing all the information that's been provided, your board waived those civil penalties based on the factors in section 1, principally due to 2 findings. One, the applicant's lack of culpability in causing the violation. They had no involvement with the well or property when the violation occurred, the unreported extractions. Or the second case, whoops, that says prior to 2021, that should be 2011. Unreported extractions prior to about 2011 were reported to United Water Conservation District, but they were failed to be reported to the agency, which in these cases, your board attributed to confusion on the part of the operators in those in that time, and not a intentional trying to obfuscate the actual extractions, and the report extraction data were produced. So there presently are 5 more appeals that have been filed, 2 more pending, which may be, and there may be additional appeals filed. The complexity of each case requires significant amount of board meeting time. And to increase the efficiency of the process for both the applicants and the board, staff recommends your board adopt the amended resolution, which delegates consideration of adjustment of those civil penalties to the executive officer. Should be noted that under the agency ordinance code that any decision of the executive officer that aggrieves a party may be appealed to the board. And the amended resolution also reorganizes the section 1 for clarity, which I'll show here in a moment. So this is the first part of section 1 of the resolution, and there's no changes proposed here. This is as it was adopted in April 2020, but it sets up section 1 as the variance is based on non-reported extractions. Here's the section where we are proposing the amendment. So there's a new section C. That clause was part of B in the original resolution, and although it applied to both cases, it, for whatever reason, was listed in B, and that could cause some confusion. So we've moved it into its own section C, and then the only other changes proposed are where it states the board on appeal has been proposed to be replaced by executive officer to decrease the civil penalty. And then at the very last clause where it said, based on, it lists the mitigating factors that could be considered. And it said, and other factors as deemed relevant by the board has been replaced by executive officer. So that concludes my prepared remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions your board may have about the proposed amendment.
Thank you, Kim. As basically, as I understand it, the genesis of this was just potentially to remove some of the appeals from having to be heard by the board. In discussing this with Jeff Pratt, he'd indicated that the board he basically heard enough of these so that he thinks he's got the sense of the board and the direction that we want to take with regard to these variances. And it's being suggested that we let basically him get the first crack. He'll go ahead and hear the appeal. And obviously, if the stakeholder is dissatisfied with Jeff's resolution, they get to appeal it to the board. Hopefully, that means that fewer, maybe none of those appeals actually reach us if they're resolved satisfactorily at the executive director level. Is my understanding correct of what the intent of this is, Kim?
Yes, that's exactly correct, Chair.
Any questions or comments by members of the board before we open it to the public at this time? Yes, Carmen. Yes. You're muted. You're muted. We can't hear you.
Repeat, to reiterate, if an appellant, an applicant is unhappy with the decision of the executive officer, it can be appealed to the board, correct?
Yes.
I'm good with it. Thank you.
All right, if there are no other questions or comments from the board at this time, let's turn it over to the public and ask if there are any members of the public who have any questions or comments with respect to this item.
Ms. Van Camp?
Yes, hello, thank you. This is Wesley Van Camp with Tannemer Nantel. Thank you for letting me have the opportunity to speak here today. I understand that it may be simpler for the board to delegate the appeal of the variance to the executive officer. And since we have an appeal that is pending, it's really a procedural issue or question that I'm bringing up right now, which is the opportunity, giving the applicants the opportunity to actually have some form of hearing with the executive officer. For example, in this process that now seems to be moving and changing on us, we simply gave a notice to the board that we would like to have an appeal heard. And then we were given an opportunity to present and rebut the agency at that hearing. And there's been no such process that I see in how this is being handled now. So my comment or my question would be an opportunity to have some sort of formal hearing or presentation of the extenuating circumstances to the executive officer in order for him to properly understand those circumstances before he makes a decision.
Wesley, unfortunately, the executive officer isn't here. I'll ask Glenn Shepard to address that, but it was my understanding that that's what the executive officer contemplated, that when it arrived on his desk, he would make contact with the applicant, with the appellant, and convene some sort of hearing, whether it's over the phone, by Zoom, face-to-face, and then basically make a determination that the applicant is free to appeal to the board. Glenn, do you have a different understanding of how that's going to work?
No, that's correct, Chair. The impetus is to administratively have the executive officer approve ones that fit within this narrow category and take the really administrative burden off of the board. And so if an appeal would be necessary coming out of the executive officer, it would go to the full board as described here within. So this is an attempt, again, administratively to offload things that were in the purview, and the board has adjudicated and has some precedence behind it on these topics. Ms. Van Camp, does that satisfy your question?
Yes, it does. So just as long as that's part of the record, that the applicants would have an opportunity to have a more formal hearing process than just having given a notice to the board of the appeal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wesley. Any other questions or comments from members of the public?
None seen here.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let me turn it back to the board. Any questions or comments from the board? And if not, is there a motion then to adopt the amended resolution 2020-03?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I have a question actually, and this could be a question probably for either for Alberto or Jason. The way I interpret the commenter's question, it's strictly it's a procedural due process question. The question, as I understand it, is some sort of formal due process hearing required? It is not the way I read 1C, but and I take it though that the intent is that the executive officer is going to provide an opportunity for the appellant to be fully heard, but at the same time, it's not a situation where there is some sort of formal hearing right granted, which would otherwise be specified in 1C. Am I interpreting that correctly, Mr. Bada?
You are, thank you. So maybe to amplify on Mr. Shepard's response, it would be entirely within the executive officer's discretion if he wanted to convene a formal administrative hearing. So his consideration of the request would be conducted in whatever manner he deems appropriate. The due process right that you identified would still exist in the form of an appeal to this board if the applicant was dissatisfied with either the the outcome of the process at the administrative level or even the manner in which it was conducted.
And that, if I can, Mr. Chair, I mean, that's the way that I interpret it, Alberta, but so you're satisfied from a procedural due process standpoint that 1C is as adequate or is defensible for the agency's purposes?
I am.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
That was my comment, Chair. Two was, I'm sorry, Chair West.
I said you had a comment, but please.
Yeah, that was gonna be my comment as well. It seemed to me that in the appellant's written materials to the executive officer, they could explain the extenuating circumstances and perhaps in most cases, he could make a decision without a formal hearing of sorts.
With that, then, is there a motion to adopt the amendment to resolution 2020-03?
Move to
Make
approve.
that motion.
I'll second that.
Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. We need a roll call.
Chair West,
Yes.
Director Ramirez,
Yes.
Director Mobley,
Yes.
Director Tremblay,
Yes.
Director Borcher.
Yes.
All right, thank you, everyone. Let's move on to item number 5, a 2021-22 mid-year budget review.
Chair West, members of the board, Kim Loeb, CMA staff again. So this item is a just that mid-year budget review. The agency is on a July through June fiscal year, and this is an opportunity to review the performance of the budget compared to the actuals. So just to refresh your board's memory, the budget is made up of the operating account, which is the day-to-day operations of the agency, and then 3 designated accounts, which are reserved for funds can only be expended at the board's direction. The first is the designated gems account, which is a reserve account for legal actions and proceedings. The second is the designated surcharge account. That's where all surcharge revenue for extractions over allocation go. And then there is a reserve of $1 million that is well reserved by direction of your board. The operating account has 4 different revenue sources. The pump charge, that's the charge under the agency's Enabling Act, groundwater sustainability fees through the SIGMA authorization, penalties and interest that are earned. It should be pointed out that the civil penalties for the unreported extractions, the item we were just talking about, those would go to a special designated account if they were collected for and only to be expended by direction of your board. Your board directed that. We have not collected any as of yet. And then grant funds if there are grant funds in the particular fiscal year. The principal operating expenses are the Public Works Agency charges by the Public Works staff that administer and manage the agency on a day-to-day basis. Legal services fees, they're provided to us by county counsel that are not litigation related, it's just the everyday type of legal support, such as this board meeting. County General Services Agency fees, which are charged for our use of the boardroom, the AV equipment, printing of the bound board packets and other printing and mailing and shipping. And then FCGMA Online support. FCGMA Online is our online data management system for reporting and tracking extractions and those things, and then the GSP annual reports, and then GSP implementation. And there's a detailed budget comparison that is in your in the staff report, your board packet as an attachment. So the operating account, looking at mid-year, we have a year-end revenue projection of about $2.6 million, which is about 94,000 higher than was budgeted. And that's due to funds from the NRCS Nature Conservancy grant that funded the water market pilot, and AMI was received. Those funds were received in this fiscal year, and they had been projected to be received by June 30th of last year. Expenses at year end are just under 3 million, which is about 45,000 lower than budgeted. And again, this is due to well, no, not again, but these are due to lowered costs for the GSP annual reports and tasks related to the new data management system that are the actuals less than the budget amounts. So the year-end fund balance is projected to be about 564,000, about 41,000 more than the adopted budget. The designated GEMS account, again, this is the reserve fund for legal actions proceedings, including special counsel expenses. The funding mechanism was adopted by your board in resolution 2020-05, which imposes a $20 per acre foot fee on most pumpers, all but de minimis pumpers, to fund that. At the time that reserve fee was adopted by your board, the GEMS was projected to be in the red until fiscal year 23-24. We're still on that trajectory. Year-end expenses this year are projected at about 1.5 million, which is about 325,000 higher than had been budgeted. And some of that is because of the translation of costs that were projected in last year that weren't incurred until this year. The year-end fund deficit is projected at about 669,000, which is about 14,000 less than was in the budget. The designated surcharges account, and again, these don't fund operations. They only used at your board's direction and principally have been used for things like water purchases or investments in activities that work to increase the yield in water supplies at basins. The actuals for December were 928,000 more than the year budget projection for 21-22. Again, this is because of the revenue being received in this fiscal year. It had been projected to be received at last fiscal year, and year-end projections have been revised to a little over $1 million to account for this. These are the year-end fund balance projections. This table is in your in the staff report, your board letter, or your agenda package. These are the various accounts on the left and the total fund balance at the bottom in blue. The year-end actuals in the first column from last fiscal year, in gray, the adopted budget. In the next column are the actual expenditures or the actual fund balances as of the end of December. The projected year end based on the current information, And then the 22-23 and 23-24 planning level budgets, which have not been adjusted. They are the same as what was in your adopted budget. So the fiscal committee is scheduled to meet on May 10th to begin the planning work for the next year's next year's budget. And staff recommends that your board receive and file this report. I'm happy to answer any questions that your board has.
Thank you, Kim. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, hearing none, let me then turn it over and ask if there are any questions or comments from the public on this item.
None seen, Chair.
Thank you. Let me turn it back to the board. If there are no questions or comments, is there a motion then to receive and file this item?
So moved.
And a second?
Second,
And we need a roll call?
Chair West,
Yes.
Director Ramirez,
Yes,
Director Mobley,
yes.
Director Tremblay,
Yes.
Director Borchert.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to item number 6, which is the presentation on projects by United Water Conservation District.
Chair, this is Glenn Shepherd. This is an item that Director Mobley requested to come on, and I believe John Lindquist is here from United that will give the presentation this afternoon. John, I see you there. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
And I think you're in the presenter mode, so I think you could screen share from your location.
Yeah, if you're ready, I will do that. And let's see if I've got this. So there, can you see the full page of my presentation? Full page?
Yes.
view? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. And I'm going to dive right in. And I was going to start with a comment about asking everybody what they thought of the great rainfall we had last night and the snow in the mountains this morning, but it didn't happen, did it? Disappointing, kind of related to all of this. I'm John Lindquist. I'm a senior hydrogeologist with United Water Conservation District. Really appreciate you inviting me here. And I was told that I have a pretty strict 15-minute time limit. So I'm going to move quickly, and I apologize for that. There's a lot of great information coming out now, not just from United, but from other project proponents, including the cities of Oxnard, Camarillo, and then Pleasant Valley County Water District. So I hope they also get an opportunity to talk a little bit about what they have planned. But I'm going to try to bring all of the projects that have been talked about recently, including at your previous board meeting with the SGM grants and the new projects being added to the GSPs for Oxnard and Pleasant Valley basins, and talk about what they may mean based on our modeling analysis for the future of the basin. So with that, I'm going to dive right in, I hope, with a little bit of background. Let's see if I can get this presentation to advance. There we go. So hopefully you're seeing a map of our area with Oxnard Basin outlined in yellow and Pleasant Valley Basin outlined in orange. And the colored dots, blue, green, and red, those represent active wells as of 2015, and probably most of them are still active today. Red dots represent wells in the lower aquifer system, blue in the upper aquifer system. It's not really that important, but in case you were curious about what's on the map. And really I just wanted to briefly summarize, especially for newer, your newest board member, Supervisor Ramirez, and just to remind everybody where we stand today, there's really two sustainability challenges, faced by the Oxnard and Pleasant Valley basins. And let's see if I can get this to work. One of them is, especially in the Oxnard Basin, we have a difference in our inflows and outflows. And the GSP pointed out that was about 5,000 acre feet per year difference. There's more outflow dominated by pumping than inflow dominated by recharge. 5,000 acre feet per year doesn't seem like a lot. And you may be wondering, well, why are we talking about ramping down, tens of thousands of acre feet and pumping? And let me see if I get the screen to advance. Partly that's because a lot of the inflow is actually seawater intrusion, which means salt water, which we don't want in the aquifer. So it's not a welcome addition, positive addition to our water budget for the Oxnard Basin by any means. And so you combine, sorry, I have to use a different button than I'm used to. So if you take out the seawater intrusion from the inflow components, then what we really have is a 13,000 acre foot per year imbalance or deficit between inflows and outflow. Now, in the Pleasant Valley Basin, there's actually a little bit more inflow on average than outflow. By the way, all these numbers are based on the averages in the GSP for the period 1985 through 2015. It's a pretty good period of record, probably representative of long-term conditions. Pleasant Valley Basin, they actually have a little more inflow than they have outflow on average, so that's good news for them. But both basins are impacted by our other big challenge, which is seawater intrusion. And seawater intrusion can happen even if your inflow and outflow are in balance. And I don't have time to get into the whys of that, but I have some great slides. So if we're invited back at some point in the future, we can talk about why that's the case. Why even if you have a basin that overall is in some sort of balance, you can still have seawater intrusion. But seawater intrusion along our coast in the Oxnard Basin occurs primarily at the Hueneme Submarine Canyon, where it comes close to shore. Our aquifers crop out in the submarine canyon where they have direct exposure to seawater. So when we pump groundwater elevations below sea level in the basin, that draws in the seawater. So we have a little bit of that seawater being drawn in at Port Hueneme area and a lot more being drawn in at the Magoo Submarine Canyon just offshore from the Point Magoo Naval Air Station. And let's see, I could click the right button here. So now in the Oxnard Aquifer, or at least as of 2015, we had seawater intrusion that extended up to a couple miles inland from the coast, which was bad news. We've known about this for 70 years. It's not exactly new news, but bad news nonetheless. And in the lower aquifer system, the Hueneme and Fox Canyon aquifers, it hasn't extended quite as far inland, but still a significant amount. It's a cause of concern for sure. And then your GSP showed some of the results of United's modeling, showing what would happen over the next 50 years if nothing was done, if we didn't reduce pumping or build projects. And it showed seawater intrusion advancing in the Oxnard Aquifer at least another quarter mile, and in some cases a mile or more. So that we definitely don't want that to happen. In the lower aquifer system, also some more intrusion in the future if nothing is done, nothing is changed. So the main points of this presentation, now that I'm finally past that long background, are that expansion of the existing and proven sources of water supply and some new supplies that are proposed by some of the stakeholders can give us balanced pumping and recharge before 2030. Take care of that first challenge for us, solve that first problem. And seawater intrusion can be contained and even reversed in the next 7 to 10 years if we build the right projects. And I just wanted to add these proposed projects, not just United's, but those projects proposed by the other folks, other stakeholders, actually have additional benefits beyond sustainability, including resilience. And I'll get to those at the end of my presentation, benefits to disadvantaged communities, water quality improvements. There's a lot of other benefits to some of these projects. And the projects I'm talking about, 3 of them, well, really 2 projects, were included in the GSP for Oxnard Basin and Pleasant Valley Basin back in 2020. And they were Freeman expansion, that's United's expansion of the Freeman diversion up on the Santa Clara River. And then Oxnard's advanced water purification facility, a delivery of water to farms. And actually that's been going on since 2015. So it's already been implemented. And then the incentivized fallowing is kind of a fallback position, a way to reduce pumping a little bit. There was talk about reducing pumping by 2,700 acre feet by fallowing some farmland. So the new projects, you guys heard about this, that some of the new projects or all these new projects at your last board meeting, talking about the SGM grant. And one of those is United's proposal, or it's not proposal, United's recent practice of importing more state water project than our Table A allocation. And we have to pay extra for that water, but we started doing that in 2017. And we really ramped that up in 2019 through 2021. And then City of Ventura is building their new State Water Project Interconnect project, and we've made arrangements with them, and we're making physical arrangements on the ground to take flush water from that project, from the State Water Project pipeline. And it's not very much, it's 100 to maybe 500 acre feet per year, but to recharge that water, so it's not just lost. And then Pleasant Valley and Camarosa talking about expanding their Conejo Creek diversions and using private reservoirs to make available or to make use of that water, to store it temporarily so that they can take it off the creek instead of letting it run into the ocean. And also some pipeline interconnects for recycled water by maybe 2025. City of Oxnard is talking about expanding their AWPF program to 7,000 acre feet per year. I don't know the exact timing on that. I thought I had heard 2028 or around that time. It could be a year or two off from that, but more water coming from that. And finally, kind of the new cornerstone in stopping seawater intrusion, as well as supplying a new source of really pure water, would be United's extraction barrier and brackish water treatment project down around Point Magoo to stop that seawater intrusion. And our plan is to get the first phase of that done in the 2025 timeframe to 2027 to start producing treated water. So these are all projects that we're talking about happening in the next 5 to 10 years, even if there are some delays. And maybe if we build those, we won't have to do any of the incentivized fallowing. I want to go into just a little detail about each of them. I'm going to try to go quickly through these, but could certainly come back for questions. The recycled water projects, what sort of progress has been made recently? Well, the Wainimi Road pipeline is supposed to be finished with construction. City of Oxnard is working on that by, I think, April of this year. So that one's just about done, and that'll allow transfer of a lot more of their recycled water over to the Pleasant Valley system and get it up to farms within both Oxnard and Pleasant Valley Basin through that pipeline. And then United, thanks to your help, we think we're going to get a grant from DWR pretty soon to actually build our Laguna Road interconnection, which will allow a transfer of either Oxnard's recycled water or more water from Pleasant Valley and Camarosa over to our PTP system to reduce pumping stress in that area and reduce seawater intrusion. Pleasant Valley talked about wanting to design and potentially build in the coming years their own connection to expand their system, not just for better water distribution within their system, but also so that we can take even more water, recycled water in the PTP system and take some of that pumping pressure off. And then they also talked about their private reservoir program, which I talked about in a minute ago. And I think their estimates are 2,000 to 2,500 acre feet per year, potentially being supplied through that program. So lots of recycled water opportunities. Real quickly, our state water project, I touched on this a minute ago. I won't spend much time on this, but like I said, we took 10,000 acre feet of Article 21 water, which I think is the first time we ever did that, in 2017. The GMA helped us by purchasing 15,000, or helped the basin by purchasing 15,000 acre feet of Article 21 water in 2019, which all went down to the Forebay and the Oxnard Basin. I should mention that 10,000 acre feet in 2017, most of that went into Fillmore and Piru basins because they were nearly empty, and we have to serve more basins than just Oxnard and Pleasant Valley, so we're happy to do that. But in the last few years, we've really focused on getting recharge down to Saticoy and El Rio and recharge in the Oxnard Basin, and making these extra water purchases outlined in red. Really gotten about 25,000 extra acre feet in those 3 years. So averaging well over our 6,000 acre foot per year target for additional state water purchases in the Oxnard Basin, and helping both, like I said, Oxnard, Pleasant Valley, also helps Las Posas and Mound a little. And then Freeman expansion, just to touch on that, it's no longer kind of in the design phases. The goal is to allow to take out some constrictions in the system so that we can take our full instantaneous water right. We really want to be able to take the muddy high flows, leave the good water in the river for the fish. But there are these 4 places where we had these constrictions. We've already eliminated one of those constrictions when we upgraded our Grand Canal headworks. That's done. We've got 100% design complete on inverted siphon. We're at about 60% design on a 3-barrel culvert. And we're about to design our Vineyard Avenue undercrossing. These aren't conceptual. These are projects that are going to be done by 2025. That we have a DWR grant for that. Again, thanks to the GMA for their support on that. And that should deliver another 2,000 to 3,000 acre feet. per year to the system on average. And then finally, Brackish Water. I won't go into details here. I'll just say that, again, it's no longer kind of pie in the sky. I think it was last week, our representatives have been working with the Navy to pick specific sites for extraction wells and monitoring wells and pipeline locations, treatment plant location. So this has really evolved and has really moved forward a lot in the last few years from when you guys put together the GSP and we came up with a conceptual project then. So it's a lot more than conceptual these days. And because you can't just pour 5,000 to 10,000 acre feet per year of water out the back door of a brackish water treatment plant, we also have to think about where that water is going. So I think in the next month or two, Kennedy Jenks, our consultant, will have completed a technical memo evaluating potential distribution options. A couple of them really stand out as being great options for supplying that water to a wide range of users throughout both basins, Oxnard and Pleasant Valley, but not just to agriculture, but to M&I. And I think there would be a lot more of those extra benefits beyond sustainability to whatever pipeline design we end up selecting. So where does this all lead? And that is, we definitely can fix that deficit between supply and demand, challenge one. In fact, we're already making great progress on it. We talked about DWR, and the GSP said there's a 13,000 acre foot shortfall. But today, even today, between the recycled water that the city of Oxnard's already providing and our 6,000 acre feet plus per year additional state water project imports, in addition to what we've done historically, we're already at about 6,500 acre feet per year or more on average towards meeting that demand. And then looking forward to 2027, just 5 years out, these projects all come to fruition on time. Again, it's not just United's projects, there's other folks involved. But we're going to have recycled water from Oxnard and Pleasant Valley, Camarosa, Camarillo. We'll have additional state water project imports. Freeman expansion should come close to meeting at least 3,000 acre feet per year by then, 2,000 to 3,000 acre feet per year, and treated brackish water. And these rectangles, they're not meant to be proportional to the volumes. In fact, in some cases, the projects may get delayed or whatever. We'll probably be at the point where we're delivering more than 13,000 acre feet per year by 2027. But I just wanted to try to fit it all within that bar chart, that column. And that's on top of that, Camarillo talked about their stormwater capture and recharge projects, which we don't know the timeline or the amounts, but it would certainly be extra water on top of what we're anticipating for 2027, which is great news. We need the flexibility and the resilience. And then I'll just add that, we have a second phase of Freeman expansion in the mid 2030s, and you may be asking, well, why do we need more? But it provides really high quality water, low greenhouse gas emissions, provides a great buffer or factor of safety, and it's in a very important response to climate change to be able to take higher flows when they happen less frequently as anticipated in the future. Almost done. I just wanted to mention the second challenge is stopping that seawater intrusion. And better yet, we want to reverse it. We don't want to just stop it where it is. We want to haul it, bring it back to the south towards the ocean. And so this red line on this map shows the 2020 inland extent of seawater intrusion in the Oxnard Aquifer. It's a little different than in the GSP. We did an update, I think just this year or last year, on seawater intrusion. And so that's the line in the Oxnard Aquifer, the most recent one. It's a little farther inland than it was in 2015, not surprisingly, during the last drought. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to go backwards. What we hope to do, or what we're planning to do, is building our brackish water extraction well field around Point Magoo, and that's going to have the impact of drawing that seawater intrusion front back southwards towards the ocean over 50 years to a new line of seawater intrusion. So we're going to be actually not just stopping seawater intrusion, but reopening tens of thousands of acre feet of storage space in the aquifer for fresh water that was formerly seawater. So a lot of benefits to that project. Those other benefits beyond sustainability that I was talking about, I won't go through each of these in detail. I'll just say that some of the projects are drought proof, so they really enhance resilience, which is also important. Water quality, we all know, is important. Reducing greenhouse gases, a couple of them do. Helping disadvantaged communities in El Rio and Oxnard and Port Hueneme. Several of those projects will have that benefit. They specifically, they help by providing better water quality with lower nitrate concentrations. All the projects will preserve farmland, and some of them also have a really low cost compared to the alternatives that have been considered. So to summarize what's been accomplished to date, United and other agencies have responded to your call for new water supply projects. So these projects are now part of the GSPs. Thank you very much for doing that. And we got that SGM grant submittal in. United is achieving its goal of 6,000 acre feet per year on average for increasing state water project imports. Collaboration with you and other agencies has been critical for that success. Oxnard is completing their Hueneme Road pipeline extension, so they're now capable of delivering much more recycled water to agriculture. And we have design and planning already underway for new projects, including expansion of proven sources, so we don't have to guess at what the outcome is going to be. We already know we can expand Freeman expansion, for example, or recycled water. These aren't new sources, really. They're just expansion of proven sources. And together, these planned projects really comprise a physical solution that can meet the groundwater needs of all the pumpers in the basins. And this is well before the 2040 deadline that we have to achieve sustainability. We're talking somewhere in that 2027 to 2030 timeframe. The path forward, I'll just add this path forward, I've got to move something here. This path forward can bring us not only sustainability, but also improve our resilience and yield a lot of other environmental and social benefits that we talked about. And we're talking about getting there in less than 10 years. In fact, we've already made great progress. And the alternative, if we don't do these projects, it really means major cutbacks in our primary water supply, groundwater, with painful impacts for agriculture and cities. And all we'll achieve is barely getting to sustainability 2 decades out in 2040 without an improved resilience, without improved water quality or any of the other benefits I talked about. So projects really seems to me as a technical guy, a scientist, the way to go. Next steps, just one more slide here, I think. We do have a little more work to do. All of us do, not just United, but Pleasant Valley and Camarillo and Oxnard. We need to work on advancing our project design approaches to meet those stakeholder needs. We really need to get out there and refine the cost estimates and project details, and we need input from stakeholders on critical factors for success. Some of this is a repeat. I'd like to come back and we have been talking with your staff, and we're about to embark on a work with or collaboration with your staffs or your agency's consultant, DUDEC, to talk about how to control seawater intrusion, specifically at Port Hueneme. And we've already started working with the Navy, but there'll be more work ahead of us on those extraction well sites. And with that, a little over time, I apologize for that, but I think if Chair West allows it, I can take some questions.
Thank you, John. I just two observations of mine. One, it's very impressive. Thank you very much. It was more information in one place than I've seen before, and I really appreciate it. I would extend an invitation to you, in fact, ask you to come back at least every 4 to 6 months to update us on the progress on these various projects. And at the same time, or I should say at any time, to let me know, to let this board know what it is the agency can do to help move the projects along, whether it's with respect to community outreach, funding, or whatever else we might be able to bring to bear to help the process. And with that, thank you. Let me ask if any of the board members have any questions or comments before we ask the public.
I do.
And by the way, the board members, you're all in really little thumbnail size. So you have to do something dramatic for me to see you. Oh, Carmen, I see your hand. Okay.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lindquist. I really appreciate this. I wonder if you're able to share this PowerPoint. I don't believe we received it. Is that correct, Kim? We didn't receive it?
We did not.
Okay, I'd like to see that. Would you be able to share that with us, I hope?
Yes, absolutely. And maybe Kim was going to speak now. I actually sent it to him yesterday, so it will be available to the public.
Yeah.
And
John, excuse me, Director Ramirez. John, if you stop sharing, we'll be able to see each other.
I'm sorry. Yes, I will do that. Yeah,
Okay.
Okay, and, I have been a close follower as a member of the Oxnard City Council, the Oxnard, all the water projects there, and I really hope that though we're not involved in this grant, I say we, but Oxnard not involved in getting any of this grant money, which I regret, but that's how it is. So important for the regional success of all of these things, so important for farmers who use that precious resource. But I do want to ask you, because it's just a general question about beneficial use. I don't know, you probably saw that article in the LA Times a while ago about the LA River. Did you see that? I did mention it to Jeff Pratt, our director here, about recycled water in some places, and I assume here too, is really primary source for environmental purposes. And if it's all sucked up for the use of our cities and our businesses and our farms, there is an impact. So I'm just wondering if that's taken into consideration. I know we sort of have to share a bit. Can you speak on that?
Yeah, I think I can. And I hope ultimately that you'll invite Oxnard representatives to come over and talk more about their recycled water project, because they really do have great plans. They really are integral and a key feature to making this whole effort for sustainability a success. And we are actively in support of them, getting more grant funding, and we'll be as supportive, provide any support we can. But to answer your question specifically, right, in the LA River, recycled water is key because the treatment plants are farther inland, and they supply a bunch of water that actually flows down the LA River to support fish. Now that's difficult to do with Oxnard, where you have a treatment plant right on the coast. And actually our Santa Clara River, for the most part, is in pretty good shape. I mean, at least compared to the LA River or some of those more urban settings.
Not concrete.
Yeah, right, absolutely. In fact, there's a lot of pressure for Ventura to take some of their recycled water out of the estuary there in Ventura. So, they're working on plans to try to find the right balance. And absolutely, we need to find the right balance. But here on the coastline with the Oxnard water, I don't know that there's a lot of potential use, maybe some wetlands right near the treatment plant. But if they start producing 7,000 acre feet per year, there's going to be, that'll be a huge benefit, especially if we can apply to those coastal areas where pumping is currently going on. And that will benefit the environment as well. And so when we talk about environmental benefits, we need to talk about the benefits of reduced pumping by applying that water for agricultural use, as well as direct benefits from discharging it into manufactured wetlands or something like that. I hope all of that gets appropriate consideration.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board before we open it to the public?
I had one, Chair. It was a message of appreciation to United in general. I've been a big fan of their efforts to solve the problems of seawater intrusion for years, and this is such positive news on the front when we are in the age of adjudications. And as many of us have observed, I think projects and things that we all can do together collectively, we accomplish a lot more, and we get a lot more done in this way than I think we do in court. So again, thank you very much to United.
All right.
I'd like to just say, great job, John. You great presentation. You never disappoint. So thank you.
And Mr. Chair, I want to echo Director Borchard's comments. John, it was an excellent presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I see a couple of hands up. Keely, would you?
Mr. Bondi?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, Brian, thank you.
Thank you, board. Thank you, John, for the presentation. I just want to ask about some of the numbers and perhaps get an explanation or clarification. The 13,000 acre feet per year deficit, if you will, doesn't seem to jive with the GSP. GSP indicates a sustainable yield of approximately 39,000 acre feet. And pumping during the last 5 or so years has been on the order of 65 to 80,000 in the Oxnard Basin. So it would seem on the face of it that the deficit or target that we're trying to address is perhaps larger than 13,000. Could you please clarify that for us? Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And I'll try to do it quickly. And like I mentioned earlier in the presentation, really, I need a little more time to talk about why you can have a basin in balance between recharge and discharge and still have seawater intrusion. And Brian, I mean, you probably get that point, but real quickly, I'll just say that. So DWR looked at the inflows and outflows over that average period, 1985 through 2015. And they estimated that if it wasn't for seawater intrusion, so-called helping in quotes with the recharge component, that the net imbalance was 12,700 acre feet. I rounded up to 13,000 acre feet. Realistically, I don't think they counted the semi-perched aquifer, which we'd rather not touch. We really want to focus on the upper and lower aquifer systems. So realistically, that 13,000 could be a little less, although more likely it's probably a little higher, closer to 14,000 or 15,000 acre feet of imbalance. And the hard concept to get is, like I said, even if we're in balance, all that pumping in Pleasant Valley Basin, especially, and in the PTP and PV pipeline areas, even if we're, I'll say it again, even if we're in balance, because it's such a flat hydraulic gradient on that coastal plain, it doesn't take much pumping for that cone of depression to reach out to the heads of those submarine canyons and start drawing in seawater. And the reason you can do that, even if you have balance, even if you have equal overall recharge and discharge, or you could even have a little more recharge than you have discharge. The reason that can happen is that more water is pouring out to the ocean from the aquifers farther north in different areas. So the overall goal of the GSP was to reduce pumping to the point where you had no more seawater intrusion. And you can imagine if you have wells near the coast or even inland pumping quite a bit, it's really hard to get to that point. And so that's why we're proposing a barrier to close off that pathway for seawater intrusion to get in. And then all you have to do is make sure you're not drawing more water out of the basin than's coming in. It's like a bank account. You can, if you're spending more money, writing more checks, and you've got income coming into your bank account month after month, eventually your bank account's going to go dry. So that's one problem we have to deal with. That's the balance problem. The other problem is if your bank account isn't very secure, somebody could be subtly replacing your money in your bank account with monopoly money or counterfeit bills. And that's another problem. That's kind of the seawater intrusion problem. We're getting water in the system, but it's just not the water we want. And so, yeah, I'd love to come back sometime and show how that works if other folks have a question. I'm sorry, Brian, I hope that starts to answer your question. It's a much longer answer than you probably wanted.
Well, my question was more fundamental, John. It seems like your analysis suggests that the sustainable yield is a lot higher than the GSP, and maybe we can talk offline.
All I'll say is that the balance is a lot higher than the 50,000 acre feet, but that sustainable yield is a little different than older concepts of safe yield, where you had to be in balance and then everybody assumed you didn't have any problems. Sustainable yield, seawater intrusion or subsidence could happen. Lots of problems can happen even if your overall influx and outflow are in balance. So I don't mean to imply that anything in the GSP is incorrect. All I'm saying is that if we don't have a seawater intrusion barrier, we really have to reduce pumping a lot more than if we did have a seawater intrusion barrier.
Thanks, Brian. Anything else?
I'll give you a call, John.
Okay, that sounds good, Brian.
All right.
Ms. Klima?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, Chair West and members of the GMA board. Thank you, John. That was a great presentation, and I'm excited to hear your perspective on these projects. We would be eager to do a presentation. I'm sure the other agencies that have participated in the projects committee would be excited as well. I didn't see anything about Ventura's recycled water facility in there, and I'd be curious to hear from them about their plans. I know that between us and them, according to United statistics, that the two recycled water facilities being one being built and the other being built out would cover a lot of these problems as well. So I'm eager to hear Ventura's perspective and other agencies' perspectives. And I'm especially eager to hear the board's perspective on how you'd like to proceed with this process. So in the past, you had this projects committee that was a part of a prior negotiator, mediator, whatever her title was, and your board selected not to continue with her, but I don't know if you'd like to continue with this projects committee. It seemed like we were making some progress, but you also have other committees that are subcommittees of your board, and you can certainly set up some other structure. And I would really be curious to hear, I know Oxnard is generally very interested in hearing how you'd like to proceed on projects and how you'd like to hear those updates. So if it's the projects committee, Chair West, to your request that there be regular updates, I think that's a great idea, that the projects committee should update the board regularly. If it's some other committee or some other system, I think that's a great suggestion. But this is very encouraging, and there's certainly a lot of information to digest there. And I also look forward to looking at the PowerPoint when I receive it and reviewing it in detail. So thank you again to United and to John especially.
Thank you, Sherry. In answer to your question, in the past, there have been two different things discussed, and I'll make sure that it gets back on the agenda soon so we can bring a resolution to the process. In the past, projects have gone first to the operations committee, where they was sort of reviewed and vetted, and when that committee felt they were right, they came to the board. Given the number of projects, the number of project proponents, and the amount of work and a limited amount of time, all things considered, we had discussed in the past moving forward with the GMA retaining a project coordinator. Basically a consultant whose principal job was to be the touchstone for all of the various parties interested in developing projects, so they could gather information, bring it back to staff, and then bring it back to the board to keep us involved and up to date. We discussed that at length, I think, before the end of 2021, and we need to bring that back to figure out which direction we're going to take, whether we're going to make room in the budget for that project coordinator consultant or do something different. And I'll see if we can't make room in the budget either next month or the month after to make that determination.
Thank you, Chair West, for that background. That's very helpful. I know Oxnard would certainly support bringing in a project coordinator or whatever staff position you all felt was appropriate, and certainly the associated budget with that, and having that person steer this and having that person present on a regular basis going forward. I think that's very important, as you highlighted.
Thank you. Any other from the public?
None seen, Chair.
All right, turning it back to the board. If there are any other comments or questions from the board, now is the time. John? thank you very much. As you can tell, both from the comments and from the board comments, the presentation was very welcome, much appreciated. We'll look forward to hearing from you again in the near future.
Thank you.
Director Ramirez, yes.
Thank you, and thank you again, Mr. Lindquist, very informative. I do think it's a good idea to have other presentations, however we want to do it. I really like to know about Ventura's recycled water program. I think the board and the public could benefit from a presentation about the Oxnard programs, which I don't know, but I think they may have started before a lot of these things. And I'd like to get the big picture about what everybody's doing. I know we focus on United Water, that's great today, but how would we be able to accomplish that, Chair?
As I say, at the moment, and I'm not sure what the schedule is, I think we'll see the schedule next month, but in the short term, I would suggest that the operations committee schedule the different project proponents for a presentation on their individual individual projects. And then if the operations committee is satisfied that the project is sufficiently far along and there's sufficient information, then the operations committee basically can make arrangements for it to come to the board. While that's happening, the board can discuss whether we want to move in the direction of a project coordinator who takes over that role from the operations committee, gets more directly involved, and reports to the board on a regular basis. All right, there's obviously no action necessary on this item at this point. There is no executive officer's report. I'm glad to say no closed session. There being no further business before the board, we are adjourned. Tony, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Tony. Enjoy your retirement from this board.
Have a good afternoon.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you, Chair, Board.
Gonna miss you, Tony. Thank you.